I run the Languages Matter project here in Slovenia, which is a 6-year project, European Social Fund project, and its main idea is how to design an environment which is languages friendly environment, let's go. And we have decided this year, especially because of the COVID-19 problems, that we were not able to travel, and we said we would invest this money into so-called weekly discussions on multilingualism. And so thank you very much to Professor Åsta Haukås from the University of Bergnu in Norway, so to share her vast expertise on multilingualism. I have read a bit of information about your research, and it shows that you've done a lot of research in multilingualism, in metacognition and multilingualism, and also multilingual beliefs and practices. And you have decided today to talk about multilingual beliefs and practices in the Norwegian school context, which will be very interesting for the Slovenian audience, but also, I hope, for international audience. So the screen is yours, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for your introduction, and thank you for inviting me. I've been in touch with Tina so far. Is it Rosmanic, or how do you pronounce your name?
Yes, Rosmanic.
Rosmanic, yes. And I've never been to Slovenia, but I've heard that it's very beautiful there, so that should be on the program soon when COVID ends. So I decided to talk about multilingual beliefs and practices in the Norwegian school context. And I hope that I can make it a little bit interactive so that I don't have a monologue for an hour. I think that then you will fall asleep so late in the afternoon. And like you said, Carmen, this is part of your Languages Matter project. So I had a look at your website, and it looks really good how you have been working with this project. And the first thing I would like to ask you all is to write in the chat now, who is multilingual in your mind? Either if you're a teacher or if you are a researcher, but who is the multilingual, or who are the multilinguals? Who are you thinking of when you talk about multilingual students or people? If you could just share with me in the chat what you think. I'm not after a right definition from somewhere, but what's your thoughts about this? Got one from Carmen so far. Yeah, another one. Have some very nice definitions. The first one, a multilingual is somebody who can function in more languages. So functionality and more languages, so it's a plural. And then it's people who speak another language or two in addition to their mother tongue, either perfectly or just a bit. Yes, so here you have the proficiency dimension. So it doesn't say that you have to be perfect, but to some extent. Those who can speak more languages, yes. Doesn't say how many, but yeah, more. Someone who speaks more languages. So here we have something about speaking. But what about writing or understanding? But yes, speaking. Andrea says everybody who use more than one language at everyday's activities. Thank you. So that's another dimension again. So it's something that happens regularly in more than one language. So we have something about regularity. He speaks more languages, yes. And somebody who can speak more languages. So again, this thing that it's more than one. So of course, the word multi says something about more than one. But some very good definitions. And they are very similar to many definitions that we see around, both how people in general define them, but also in research. But I'm quite sure that you have come across people who don't have the same definitions as you have. So for example, if you have read research, you can read one definition here and another one there. And people tend to speak about multilingualism often, and they just assume that people agree with them, but we can actually be talking about very different things. And suddenly we realize that, oh, the multilinguals you are talking about are not the multilinguals that I'm talking about. And in our project, let's see if I can move now. Suddenly it's what happened. You said, Carmen, yeah, there it is. I was able to move my slides. And in 2018, I started a project called Ungspråk project together with two PhDs. It's Irina Tyorikova and Andres Dotto. And we wanted to look at teenagers' multilingual identity. Do they see themselves as multilingual? What kind of multilingualism do they have? And how do they use their languages? Do they think that to be multilingual is an advantage if they see themselves as multilinguals or not? And what kind of factors are related to their multilingualism? And I think that this project is also very interesting in itself, because Irina, she comes from Russia and Andre comes from Brazil. So we are a very multilingual team altogether. And it also showed us that to be multilingual is also more than speaking more than one language. It also has something to do with our identities and where we come from and what kind of experience we have had. So we needed quite a long time to get to know each other and each other's beliefs about multilingualism and how to do research together, which was really interesting for all three of us, and really also something that I gained a lot from and learned a lot from. And this project lasted for 4 years, so this is kind of the final phase. And Irina and Andre are now working very hard to finish their PhD thesis. They will hopefully submit their thesis in just a few months. But I would like to ask you again now, because I don't know much about Slovenia, and perhaps you don't know too much about Norway either. But do you know which languages are spoken in Norway? Could you write in the chat what kind of languages do you know that we have in Norway? And then I can make some guesses about Slovenia afterwards. Great. We see here Norwegian and Old Norse. Carmen, can you tell me what you mean by Old Norse?
I was not sure what to call it, but I see that Andrea, I think, is right about Bokmål and Nynorsk. So it's kind of a new Norwegian, an older Norwegian, I don't know, something like that.
Yeah. Well done. Thank you. And then just Norwegian, but here, Andrea, yes, you know, but Nynorsk and Bokmål. Norwegian and English, yes. English is very much spoken in Norway, although it's not an official language, but it's very much used everywhere. Norwegian, English, yes, thank you. Of course, we also have a lot of immigrant languages, like you do as well. But let's take a look at which languages we speak and which ones are our national languages. But first of all, I would guess that Slovenian is a language that you speak in Slovenia, and it's close to Italy. So do you have Italian, kind of a subpopulation or whatever?
Yes, there is an Italian minority, yes, on the coast. Mm-hmm. Yes. Right.
Do they get to learn Italian in school?
Just in that region. Otherwise, Italian across Slovenia, it's taught as a foreign language.
Okay, yes. And do many study Italian then?
I mean, on the coast, it is a subject actually in all schools. well, there are some, how would I say, schools for Italian children. So where the language of the schooling is Italian and they learn Slovene as a second language, and then vice versa. You have the Slovene schools where the Slovene is the language of schooling and Italian is their second language.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what about other neighbor languages?
Yeah, there is one other minority, Hungarian minority, and in that part, so where the minority lives, the children learn both languages equally. Mm. So Hungarian and Italian, but their school program is different from the Italian one in the way that they have, so the lessons are split in halves. And let's say half of the maths lesson would be taught in Hungarian, and then this teacher disappears and the Slovene teacher comes in and continues with mathematics, but in Slovene. So it's like little, or, you know.
It's kind of clear. How interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Although I think the teacher should be there all the time. But
yeah, exactly. But well, there are two teachers. So one for one, you know, teaching through Hungarian and the other teaching through Slovenian.
Yeah, that's great. Really interesting that you have different models also for the different languages.
Yes, exactly.
So back to Norway
then. We have the languages of immigrants, you know, so lots of the old republics of Yugoslavia, so many languages from there. But that's all, I mean, two recognized.
Yes, all right. Thank you. So in Norway, and of course, this is also depending on how you define a language. But in Norway, most Norwegians are very proud of their dialects. And if you take a look at Norway, it's a very long country. So actually, if you take the top of Norway and you kind of turn Norway upside down, the top of Norway will be in Sicily in Italy. So it's a very long stretch and a lot of mountains, fjords. So that means different dialects have developed over the years, and they're very different also. And it's highly encouraged to speak your own dialect. So everyone will use their dialect in television, or politicians or the prime minister or actors, they will use their dialects. And we are very used to hearing dialects everywhere. And so that's kind of a multilingualism also, to understand all of these. And we don't really think about it that people have many different dialects. And then, like Andrea said, we have two different types of Norwegian, written Norwegian, and that's bokmål and nynorsk. And bokmål, that's kind of directly translated book language. So that's the language we took over from the Danes, because Denmark, they ruled us for 400 years, and we kind of took their language and adapted it a bit, modernized it. So that's the book language. And then nynorsk, that's New Norwegian, and that was constructed around 150 years ago. There was a man called Ivar Aasen. He thought it was too bad that we were kind of writing in Danish. So we traveled around and collected different dialects from different regions, and he made, based on these dialects, he made a new written language, which is nynorsk. And then we have Sami, which is actually several indigenous languages, mainly in the north of Norway, but there are 3 different varieties of Sami. And not many thousand people speak Sami, but in those regions you can have Sami as your first language in school, for example, but you can also learn it as a foreign language. And all students in Norway have to learn bokmål and nynorsk. So if you get started in your first school year with bokmål, then you will have both when you start your eighth school year, so when you are 13. And if you start with nynorsk, then you will have bokmål later on. So you kind of are expected to write in and read in both varieties. And how many do you think will learn bokmål in Norway? How many percent take bokmål, so the book language? Can you have a wild guess in the chat? %, so 50-50. Anyone else? Only Carmen who does this, but yeah, you're wrong, Carmen, sorry. Actually, 85%, even more, have bokmål, and only 12 to 15% have nynorsk. And so bokmål is kind of the variety of the cities, the bigger cities, and nynorsk is mainly used along the coast where I come from, actually, so the western coast of Norway, around Bergen and a bit further north and south. But nynorsk is also under pressure, so kind of more and more schools and students turning to bokmål like the main language. So there is a hard battle to try to protect nynorsk also in Norway. Then English is an important language, and it's learned also from the first school year. So you start learning both one of the Norwegian varieties and English at the same time. When you start the 8th school year, so when you are 13, you can decide to learn French, German, and Spanish, but it's not mandatory, so you can decide not to. But around 75% say, yes, I would like to have that. So I think that's not too bad that many have it, although we are worried that the numbers are decreasing. Then we have a number of immigrant languages. Right now, Polish is the biggest immigrant language. Also have a larger number of Somali speakers, Germans and Swedes and Danes, of course, the neighbors, are also among the most spoken languages, but also Arabic. Yeah, we have very many different languages. We also have some national minority languages that have a special protection. And that's Kven, Romani, Umanes, and also sign language, Norwegian Sign Language just got official protection. And most of us will understand very well Danish and Swedish. And it's actually part of the curriculum also for Norwegian to read texts in both Danish and Swedish and understand main similarities of these languages. So I would say that there is a lot of languaging and languages going on in Norway. And just to tell my own story about what kind of languages I have, do you see me in this picture? Where am I?
I can only guess. Yeah, I think you will have to tell us. You
Yeah.
are.
Maybe next to the boy with the red and white striped sweater.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that boy is me actually. But yeah, I had a short hair. So that's me with the striped sweater to the right. And as you can see, we were not very many pupils. This is in the first school year. I was 7, and I grew up on a farm. And just like a little road there, we had kind of a special dialect. We were a bit isolated from the rest. We didn't speak the Bergen dialect. We had our own dialect. So when I came to school, I was very surprised to hear that most of the other pupils spoke another dialect than me. I already then got some kind of a increased language awareness that not everyone in the world speaks my dialect. And also my mother is very occupied with languages, so she decided I should learn nynorsk, so kind of the minority variety of Norwegian. That's also why we are so few in the class, because most would have bokmål. They would be 30 in the class, but since so few wanted nynorsk, we had a very nice and small group. So that was actually an advantage to us. So later on, I learned bokmål, and I have to admit, and perhaps this is also similar in Slovenia, but it was kind of a bit of a shameful to speak my dialect. I wasn't that proud of it. It was connected with being a farmer, and that was not the coolest thing to be. So when I started lower secondary school and we came together with many different pupils, I changed my dialect. So I started speaking the Bergen dialect, kind of not show where I was from and not being identified. So for example, if I was on a shopping center with my mother, I really had to choose my words carefully so that she would not discover I changed my dialect, and the other ones would not discover either. So very much language awareness and work involved in hiding these things. And English, yes, I loved English from the very first moment, and the teacher there was also my English teacher. First song we learned was My Bonnie is Over the Ocean. And I continue with German in the 8th school year, and that's also what I have my PhD in. So that's something that I continue with. But I also decided to learn French in upper secondary school. And I've written Spanish here, and that's because I've kind of tried to use Spanish, kind of a version of French Spanish, and I actually think I can get along a bit in Spanish, although I haven't learned a single thing about it. But I think it has to do with my multilingual awareness, that I can make myself a bit understood, but it's harder to understand what they say back. And of course, my multilingual journey also means that I've met a lot of immigrants and immigrant languages on my journey. Minority languages, I've lived very far up north. I took my PhD in Tromsø, and there I met many people with Sami as their first language, and their pride of having Sami and not Norwegian. And I've spent 1 whole year living in the same room as a Danish girl, so then I got really proficient in Danish, and my father's new wife is Swedish, so it's kind of many languages in my identity. But I'm not saying this to say that I'm special, because I think this is quite typical actually for very many Norwegians to have a lot of languages, and I think it's quite typical for most people to have many languages in and around them. When we start thinking about it, then I think most people will realize that they have a lot of languages and language experiences. So to conclude, I would say that I am multilingual, and so is everybody else in Norway, because we have so many languages that we learned, we are surrounded by them, we have dialects. Yeah, so languages is part of us. And this is actually the logo for my research group, Multilingualism on My Mind. And it's supposed to symbolize a head or a brain. And all of these flowers, this is one flower, but it has many smaller flowers. All of them are beautiful in themselves, but all together they make one beautiful flower, and that's our own multilingualism. And multilingualism on my mind is also kind of a wordplay that I'm very occupied with multilingualism, but also that my mind is multilingual. But okay, I think I'm multilingual, but what about people in Norway in general? And I will very soon, there will be a book published called Multilingualism and Identity, Interdisciplinary Perspectives. And in this book, I've written a chapter called Who Are the Multilinguals? Pupils' Definitions, Self-Perceptions, and the Public Debate. And like you already gave me a few, and I will tell you a bit about this chapter now. You already gave a few definitions of multilingualism. And if we take a look at different definitions, we see that, for example, number of languages is one requirement. So some would say that more than one language, then you are multilingual. And I think some of you said that. Some of you said more than 2. Some would say more than 3. Many of you just said more languages, so you didn't define how many. And you find all of these definitions around. Then proficiency. There are very many different definitions that include proficiency. Some require quite high proficiency in all the languages you know to be multilingual. But I think one of you said it's okay to only know a bit of a language, and you could say you are multilingual. And also, you probably know this about the European framework. They also have this definition that your proficiency can vary in your different languages. Regularity of use was something one of you said. Is it used regularly on an everyday basis? Is that a requirement for being multilingual, or isn't it? What about those learning, for example, German as a foreign language in school? Many of them only use the language in the classroom 2 hours a week. So will they be excluded if it's regularly, if it's every day, or can we include them? Some define it based on identity, what you feel like and how you see it yourself. And of course, many definitions don't really discuss language, but what is a language? Does it have to be kind of the language that you see in the grammar book, where you have all the rules explained? Or, yeah, like I said, can it be a dialect? What about body language? Is that a language? Yeah, sign language is not recognized as a language everywhere. So all of these definitions float around, and I'm not sure that everyone is clear enough about it when they write about multilingualism. But let's see what they say in the Norwegian school curriculum about multilingualism. So I'll just give you a second to read it on your own. So it's quite nice, isn't it? It's about multilingualism as a resource. It can give you valuable insights into different forms of expressions, ideas, and traditions. And pupils shall experience that being proficient in a number of languages is a resource, both in school and society at large. So there is kind of a stated goal for Norwegian schooling that you should be proficient in a number of languages. They don't say how many, but that you should feel it yourself that this is of benefit to you. The problem about, or not a problem, but the curriculum never defines what they mean by multilingualism. So we don't really know exactly what they mean. But if we take a look at, for example, Norwegian subjects, so the first language of schooling, multilingualism is not directly defined, but they say that it's important to have an awareness of one's own linguistic and cultural identity. And you are supposed to read and write in bokmål and Njeno, like I said. Sami is also not something you have to learn, but you should read text translated from Sami, and you should learn about Sami culture and language. So everyone should learn about that. You should also learn about Danish and Swedish and understand them. And also quite nicely that in the Norwegian curriculum, you should compare Norwegian with other languages. And by other, they don't specify it. So that can be all the languages that are present in the classroom. And of course, it can also be other languages that you learn in school. But here, for example, also immigrant languages could be included. But they don't say it. So it's a bit up to the teacher to think what is meant here and what can be included. If we follow up with the English, we see that they also have a focus on multilingualism, saying that language learning means finding relationships between English and other languages the pupils already know, and use multilingualism as a resource. So again, it's a question of the students becoming aware that they already know multiple languages and kind of use this for their own benefit. And then it's a second foreign language, so typically French, German, Spanish. We have even, and I have to say, I was part of making this curriculum for foreign languages, but we also have our own kind of core elements. We have highlighted it even more than the others, not only a competence aim, but we have language learning and multilingualism as kind of a main core element for foreign languages. Language learning and multilingualism. What about mother tongue teaching for language minorities? There we can, for example, read that knowing one's mother tongue is valuable and it may strengthen the pupil's identity and sense of belonging in the multicultural society. So positive, but at the same time, I'm a bit critical about this offer because very few pupils get the possibility to learn their own mother tongue, only a few thousand. I just read today that around 10,000 have mother tongue teaching in Norway, but there are 300,000 students who have other languages than Norwegian as their home language. And as soon as you are good enough in Norwegian, you will lose the mother tongue teaching. So I think this is a bit of a split tongue. They say it's very valuable, but as soon as you are good enough in Norwegian, you lose it. So how valuable is it really? And what about scholars? So this is kind of the first part of this book chapter, but scholars, who do they think of when they think about the multilinguals in Norway? And this is something that I always find a bit surprising, but maybe you will have the same experience from your context. But if people talk about the multilinguals, they typically think about people with immigrant backgrounds and only them. So that means that all the people I've been talking about, like myself, I'm not a multilingual in kind of the minds. When we talk about multilingual people in Norway, we mean, or most people mean, people with immigrant backgrounds. And or people with minority language backgrounds. So it's those two. And minority language background, that could be, for example, Sami people. And in that way, this is something that Ann-Valerie Sikkinge has said, that the learners of foreign languages, whatever the level of proficiency, are not identified as multilingual in the Norwegian context. And I see Carmen, you are nodding. I'm not sure if that means that this is similar in the Slovenian context. Yeah?
Yeah, I think, I mean, we haven't done a national study on this, but yeah, I would agree that many in Slovenia would say that, you know, unless you are, well, how would I say, highly proficient in, you know, more languages, then you are also considered as a multilingual. So as a foreign language learner, yeah, it's not something, yeah, they don't really understand themselves as multilinguals or others as multilinguals.
Yeah.
I think we would get the pretty same results.
Yeah. But the bit strange thing here is also in Norway that perhaps you only just arrived in Norway and you haven't started learning Norwegian yet, and you only know Somali, for example, but still you would be called multilingual. But the ones who are highly proficient in English and Norwegian and German, knowing 3 languages, they would not be identified as multilingual. So it's kind of the thing that multilingual is not used actually for language knowledge, is meant something else. It means actually immigrant, and not really talking about how many languages you know, because actually the majority of people in Norway are excluded from it. So this is very interesting, I think, and I think it's very important to think about this when we read or hear about multilinguals. Who are they talking about? And what about then people in general? I also had a look at this when I wrote that chapter. Do they also think about immigrants as the only multilinguals in Norway? And first of all, I found a citation from one of the scholars, and he said, it is not normally the majority population's relative good English skills we are referring to when we talk about multilingual people. Because and then goes on to say, because it's the immigrants that are multilinguals. And in one of my studies, I asked students, so who do you think are the multilinguals? And one of them said, I think multilingual is a neutral code word for being an immigrant. So it's kind of been removed from its original meanings of multi, more, and languages to kind of talk about a group, a subgroup of the population. And he said, because it's so difficult nowadays to know what is the politically correct word for talking about different people. So I think that this is kind of a nice sounding word for somebody who does not come from Norway, which I think is a very interesting comment. But then Edith Bugge, she asked 327 people in one region in Norway, do you see yourself as multilingual? And really, most of them said, yes, I am multilingual. So people in general, actually, when they ask the question, they say that they are multilingual. And Edith Bugge, she's also among the people who would have a tendency to say that a multilingual person is someone with an immigrant background. She said, that's strange. Perhaps they haven't quite understood what it means to be multilingual. So she was thinking these people are special since they think they are multilingual, but I tend to agree with them that they probably are. So why is it so important that people say that they are multilingual? Why does it matter at all? And I think, along with other researchers, that there can be many good reasons for identifying as multilingual. And some researchers in Cambridge have, for example, the following suggestions. Learners who identify as multilingual may be more likely to invest effort in the learning and maintenance of their languages because they feel it belongs to them. These are my languages and I am multilingual. And they also suggest that may lead to enhanced social cohesion in the school and beyond. That if everyone is able to say that they are multilingual and that that's appreciated as a resource and that's something you are proud of, that also means that you are interested in and willing to work on and maintain your languages. So that's their suggestions. And from the Norwegian context, we've also seen that teachers who try to work on students' languages in the classroom, they meet students who are not really interested in this. And my hypothesis is that these teachers really did their best, but they only wanted to work on the multilingualism of a certain group, for example, Polish students. They wanted to kind of lift up the Polish students and say, so how is this in your language? But you know, teenagers, they don't want to be special. They don't want you to say, Elizabeth, so how is that in your language? Then everybody is looking at you. So the students in those studies said that we don't want this, we don't like it. But what if everyone was considered multilingual in the classroom, which I think they are, and everyone could explore their own multilingualism, all their dialects, all their languages, including those of the immigrant students, then this would be a normal thing that everyone would be doing. And I think that that could make a lot of difference in how we work with languages and how languages can matter, to use your own name of your own project. So then let's go on to our studies to see what we found among our students. So to find out more about students' multilingualism, we, like I said, had to get to know each other first as a multilingual team. And then we wrote an article. You can download and have a look at this if you like. These are all open access, about the Ungspråk project. And Ungspråk, I have to tell you what that means, since that's a Norwegian word that we have invented actually. So Ung means young, and Språk is language or languages. This can both be singular and plural. So you have to you can put into it what you like. So we chose that word because, yeah, depending on how people see themselves, do they see themselves as having one or more languages? And this first article on top of my slide is really about the project and all the plans we had and have for the project. And then the second one describes how we developed a questionnaire that we could use in schools to find out more about students' multilingualism, how they use their different languages, and also if they identify as multilingual. And this questionnaire can be downloaded on the website. So if you would like to have a look at it and also use it in schools, for example, to collect, use it with your students if you're a teacher and see what they think and what kind of languages they use and what they think about languages. I think this is quite a good tool to get started discussing students' multilingualism in your context and what they think about languages and language learning. So if you like, you're more than welcome to have a look at those. And one of the main things we did in the questionnaire is to ask being multilingual means, and then they were going to complete the sentence. So we didn't want to say that you are multilingual, but we wanted to see what they thought, like I did with you earlier today. How would you define it? And we had 593 students from 7 different schools to write their own definition. And of course, there's a lot of work to try to sort all of the different definitions that I had. And in that chapter that I've been talking about now, I just analyzed one school, so 116 students. And these students are all 13 years old. They have just started learning German, French, and Spanish. So they have had 1 year of that, 7 years of English, 7 years of Norwegian. But some of them also have other languages because of immigration or other reasons, or their parents or whatever. So what did they say? What is to be multilingual? And this is a first overview of what they said. And I think it's a bit similar to what you said. But first of all, many of them just said it means to know multiple languages. So they didn't specify. And we saw that with you also, more languages, you said. But some of them wanted to be very specific. So to know more than 1 language, more than 2, more than 3. This is no. So they didn't say actually what it means to know. Does it mean just to have knowledge of them? Do you have to speak them, write them? They didn't specify this. But then there was a group of people who said it's about communication. And I saw this again with you. It's about communicating in multiple languages. But some said it's about understanding multiple languages. So you don't really necessarily have to speak them. But Danish or Swedish, we understand it, but we don't really speak it. And we here have regularity, to use multiple languages regularly. It was really nice to see that just like the scholars all over the world, you have different definitions that these 13-year-olds came up with. But some of them also had some other definitions. Understand and accept that people are different. And I think one of you had something about culture as well. So realizing that we are different. Some of them had, 2 of them had about to know better how to learn languages. So to be multilingual means you know something about that. And interestingly, to come from one country and live in another. That's kind of the immigrant definition, but only one student said that. And not like most scholars in Norway, that it's mainly the immigrants who are multilingual. So that's only 1 out of 116. 5 said to have 2 mother tongues. So that could perhaps be someone with parents with different languages. And then 8 of them said just, I don't know, or I just said, I want a break or something. So those are not counted. But yeah, like you see here, all the dimensions that I talked about earlier on from the research is included in their definitions. After they had written their own definition, we asked, okay, so are you multilingual? And they were supposed to answer yes, no, or I don't know. And afterwards, they were going to give a reason why they thought they were multilingual or not, or why they didn't know. So here is the result from those 116 students. And as you can see, 67% said, yeah, I'm multilingual. Only 9% said no, and 23% said, I'm not sure. So again, school students' perceptions are very different it seems from the scholarly perceptions, that they see themselves actually as multilingual, which I think is very positive. If we take a look at the whole sample of 593 students, we could also see who said what. So all pupils said, of all pupils, around 67% said that we are multilingual. But we see that pupils who had immigrant backgrounds, they are more likely to say they are multilingual than those without. So it's a bit smaller percentage if we only look at pupils without immigrant backgrounds. But nevertheless, 2/3 say they are. Okay, so why are they multilingual then? We asked this. So those who said yes, what did they say? And no, sorry, this is about the ones who said that they are not multilingual. So most of them said I am multilingual because I know more than one language and so on. But those who said they are not multilingual said, I only know 2 languages. So that's not enough. Or I don't know many languages. Or I'm not fluent in multilingual languages. So they kind of have this thing that you have to be fluent. 4 say, I'm not multilingual because I come from Norway. So this is kind of this immigrant belief again. But 11 said, and now I have to remove. Yeah, so those are actually all of them. So only those. But then it's quite important also to say those who said, I don't know. And again, you see that they said, well, I don't know, how many languages do you need to know then? Or I don't know because I'm not fluent in multiple languages. My mother tongue is Norwegian, or I don't know the meaning of the word. So what is it actually to be multilingual? So I think that here there's room for working and discussing with the students what it means to be multilingual, and to kind of strengthening all the students who say they are multilingual and kind of supporting them in those beliefs, but also supporting those who are not sure, who say no, and kind of helping them also to get a multilingual identity. And that moves us to the next part, namely who is going to do the job. And that's the teacher, mainly. So without teachers, it's not really much we can do about changing students' multilingual identity or that they feel that they are multilingual language learners. So the most important people here are actually the teachers, and probably also the head teachers and the principals that kind of support the teachers. But teachers need to know about this. They also need to know about themselves and their own multilingualism. Are they multilingual? What kind of beliefs do they have? And what is possible to do in the classroom? And I see that this is something you have been working with also in your project, with a lot of good materials. And in the Norwegian context, this is a bit messy, but I have published quite a lot of articles about teachers' beliefs. The first one was about teachers' beliefs about multilingualism among foreign language teachers, so teachers of French, Spanish, German, but who also taught English or Norwegian, so they kind of taught multiple languages. And all of these teachers said that, yes, I am multilingual myself. I see multilingualism as an advantage for myself, but they weren't really convinced that multilingualism was an advantage for the students. But perhaps most importantly, they didn't know how to work on these things in the classroom. How can I help my students become more multilingual and become aware of their multilingualism? And actually, most of them or all admitted that if they talked about multilingualism, that was more of a sporadic thing that wasn't really planned or something. It was happening quite rarely. And the second study is from 2019, and that's because I decided the teachers are not to blame because they don't know anything about this, because it's nothing in teacher education. So I, as a teacher educator, have to take some responsibility here and have more about multilingualism in teacher education. otherwise we cannot expect the teachers to do this and to know about it. So just as a small attempt to change things, we have now started with a one-day seminar at the University in Bergnu where all language teachers are together. So it's the language teacher of Norwegian, Norwegian as a second language, Norwegian English teachers, French, Spanish, and German. They all have one day together where we look at the curriculum for the different languages. They explore their own multilingualism. They try to make lessons plans where they work on enhancing the students' multilingualism. And they try to look across the language subject borders, how they can, as future teachers, work together as a team, as a multilingual team in the schools. These days have worked quite well, I think, but it's not enough to just have one day, but it's a start at least. And this second study in German is about some students, how they experienced this and what they did in school practice to kind of trying to implement multilingualism. And the last one is about Norwegian L1 teachers. So it's 5 years later than my study from 2016, but unfortunately very similar results, that they think it's sounds like a good idea, but they're not really very knowledgeable about how to do this. So there is a long way to go still. These are only, yeah. And then today we had a new study coming out actually from the same project. And because we thought that, okay, everyone says it's such a good thing to be multilingual, but what about the school students? Do they think that all these benefits that we are talking about, like you become more creative if you are multilingual, you become better in the school subjects, you are more flexible, you are better at learning new languages, you are better at understanding other people's feelings, you make more money? That's also something, someone who has studied this. Do they believe in all of these beliefs, these findings? And if they don't believe in them, why should they invest in learning many languages? So part of the Ungspråk questionnaire is actually to look into if the students believe in these benefits. And what do you think? Do they believe in them?
We hope they do, but I think they need well, more discussion, you know, so actually tackling these issues in school,
Yeah.
outside the school, and also what the status of multilingualism in the society is. So there are many other factors that might influence their identity and their feelings and their beliefs.
Yes, good answers, Carmen. You can click on this later on to see some more details on exactly what statements we had. But like you said, or we were actually a bit surprised how skeptical they were. So actually many of these beliefs or findings, they didn't believe in them. They said, I don't know, or I don't think so. But what I liked is that the one benefits that were related to learning languages in school and learning languages in general, they believed in them. So they thought that if you know, the more languages you know, the easier it gets to learn further languages. And also that if you learn more languages, you will also better understand your previous languages. So kind of you have a more increased language awareness, and you're able to understand other feelings better. So the intercultural competence. So I think this is very positive, because that's, I would say, our main aims for teaching in school, like earning more money or being more creative. That's not kind of our job to work on that, although some people can be very motivated by such things as well. But then we had a look into who thinks what. For example, those who learn 3 languages in school, are they more positive than those who have decided against learning foreign languages? So those who only have Norwegian and English, and those who have Norwegian, English, and German, French, and Spanish. And do you think so? Were the ones with 3 languages more positive than the ones with 2?
We would expect so, I think.
Yeah.
This is expected, but well.
Expected, and we also were thinking of that, and also the ones with a multilingual identity, those who said, I identify as multilingual and I believe in this. But the answer is no to both. So there was no statistical difference between those who had 3 languages in school and 2, and no difference between those who said, I identify as multilingual and not. But there were significant differences between 3 groups, and I think that's quite interesting. So pupils who had an immigrant background, also pupils who spoke another language than Norwegian in the home, they had more positive beliefs about the benefits of multilingualism than those without an immigrant background. That's one finding. Another finding is that students who had friends who spoke other languages than Norwegian in the home also had more positive beliefs. And students who had been living abroad also had more positive beliefs. So we were thinking, what's this? Because all these 3 groups has nothing to do with school, but it has to do with having met people who use multiple languages, and that you see that that's a valuable thing, that this is a resource. So those with other languages in the home, they know how they can juggle around with several languages. Those who are friends with these students see that, wow, it must be a nice thing to know multiple languages. And also those who go abroad and see that using multiple languages can make me get to know people, and it's really valuable to me.
Does it come to experiences, right?
Yes, exactly. So it's experiences and not just, and I thought this was, and we only speculate about this in the end, but I think that this tells us also something about school students in the classroom, that they should be given more chances to encounter what it means to be multilingual. And we cannot pay everyone to go on a school trip, but how can we get multilingualism more into the classroom? How can we get students to meet others through, it can be online meetings, it can be people coming, like we just said now, both about Slovenia and Norway, we have so many different people with so many different languages. Why don't we invite some of them into the classroom and let them talk with these people and see, wow, I can communicate a bit in German with these people or whatever, or they can tell their stories about how they experience being multilingual. So I think that's a big potential there, that we can do much more so that everyone gets the feeling of what it's like to be multilingual and how that can change you. Not just learning the grammar, but to actually use your own multilingualism. Yeah, and I'm talking a lot now, so now I'm moving towards the end. I think there is also one other thing that is very important, and that is, I think we need to collaborate more. We cannot say to the teachers, you teachers, you should go on and do some more work in the classroom. No, they need support because this is quite new and it takes time to implement. So I think that teacher educators also have to take a lot of responsibility and work together with language teachers, both those who are already teaching and also those who are students, but also researchers on multilingualism like myself and many others, not just publish articles and say, here is what we found, but how can this be used in the languages classrooms? And what kind of language materials can be developed to support multilingualism in school, and that everyone is multilingual, not just the ones someone called elite multilinguals that are very proficient in English, for example, and not only the ones with immigrant backgrounds and other home languages, but how everyone in the classroom can see themselves as multilingual and work on their own multilingualism. So I think there is a lot of room for improvement here, and we just got started, and I think we should all work also across borders to do this. And just one example towards the end, and that's a new project we started now just before Christmas. It's called Multi-Rights. We got a lot of money, 12 million kroners from the Norwegian Council to have a 4-year project called Multi-Rights. And in this project, we look at students' writing development over 1 year. So how they write their texts in Norwegian, how they write text in English, how they write in the foreign language, either French, German, and Spanish. And we track their development in these 3 subjects. We also look at what kind of feedback the teachers in the different subjects give to the students, and if they focus on very different things in the subjects, or if there's kind of a collaboration in the school and that they have a coherent way of giving feedback to the students. And also if the students pick up on the feedback, do they use the feedback at all? And does feedback in, for example, English change how they write in Norwegian or in French? And the last part of the project, and that's where I am the head of the last part, and that's that we will take the findings from this first step back to the teachers. And we will work in some schools over time and do workshops with the teacher and try to look at the findings and come up with a way of teacher collaboration across language subjects that is meaningful for all of them and that can help us support students' language development in each language, but also across the languages to increase their knowledge about language learning and, yeah, become even better multilinguals. So that's just started, so it will be very exciting. We will start the data collection very soon. I think that's enough for now, but I'm very happy to answer questions or discuss things, or yeah.
Thank you very much. Åsta, that was very, very interesting, informative, motivating. So, well, I hope that there will be lots of questions now from the audience. So first of all, I would like to ask the audience to come up with suggestions, comments, feedback. Welcome. You can use any language, also Slovenian I can translate, or I think that you understand German as far as I know. So
Yeah.
if you use German, you can use German. So yeah. Otherwise, I'll break the ice, and then I hope that others will join. I have been thinking, you know, when you mentioned the teachers' beliefs towards multilingualism, and I've been wondering whether you've done any research in how different teachers, how, let's say, the subject they teach, okay, does this matter when it comes to the what kind of beliefs they have towards multilingualism?
It's a very good question. So what I see from the teachers of foreign languages, they say that they kind of draw a lot on English and Norwegian, so kind of the first and the second language of the majority of the students. And probably because they also know these 2 languages. And I think that's also a bit of a problem, because they say they don't really draw on or use the other languages as resources, because, like they say, I don't know them. They feel they have to be experts in the languages that they draw on. And this is then the opposite for the ones in the Norwegian teachers. They are not drawing much on the other languages because they don't know them unless they have studied them. So those who have studied also a foreign language, they will draw on those particular languages, but not really on letting students explore their own language repertoires.
But how do they feel? I mean, you know, do they feel more multilingual if they are teachers of, I don't know, L1, so Norwegian as L1, or if they are foreign language teachers, or if they are other subject teachers, you know, non-language teachers? Do they matter?
It's a very interesting question, and I cannot say I know. I would guess that the ones teaching foreign languages feel more multilingual, but I have no idea if that's true. What do you think from your perspective?
Yeah, we've done some research, yeah, and it shows, yeah, that well, teachers who know more languages would feel more multilingual, or those who use more languages, and this can also be sometimes subject teachers, because well, if it comes to CLIL, you know, and how we learn languages, so kind of through the content, I think it's important to get subject teachers, you know, on board. Sometimes it happens, you know, that, I mean, if we want that multilingualism becomes a resource, then we need the support of the whole school. So this whole school approach. And I mean, we've done some interviews with my colleagues who are special didactic, or, you know, who teach, let's say, chemistry for, you know, chemistry teachers, but methodology to chemistry teachers. And I mean, you could see that they have very different, you know, feelings or beliefs about multilingualism. They may recognize the resource of English, but this is the part that, you know, this is the furthest they go, while other languages are still somehow not recognized as a resource.
I think this can be found similar things in Norway. And just like you said, of course, we should have all subject teachers on board.
Yeah.
And that should be the next step, I think. But kind of a bit sad that we don't even have the language subject teachers on board. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but
first step to go. Yeah.
But I also believe that a whole school approach would be a very good thing, to try to help all teachers become aware of various ways of supporting the students.
Yeah, because I think that only the whole school approach will really help to see multilingualism as a support. And there's another question, you know, when you mentioned the benefits, okay, of multilingualism, and I've been thinking, I mean, if you look at the curricula, right? I mean, national curriculums, probably you have national curricula. I mean, is this topic actually mentioned? Is it something that teachers would talk about, discuss with students? Is it there?
Yeah, so it's there in the new curriculum from 2020.
Okay.
It's also kind of presented as a resource. But the thing is, again, how much is it talked about? And that's where we see that the teachers are not there yet to talk too much about it yet. And actually, in one of the publications from last year, that was about Norwegian teachers, and said, so do you work on multilingualism as a resource and draw on all the languages in the classroom? And I said, to be honest, the curriculum is so packed with different things. So this would be one of the first things that I would drop because I don't have time for everything. And one or two of them even said, well, you know, our textbook, Multilingualism, that's one of the last chapters in the book. So that signals to us that it's not the most important thing.
Yeah, I can imagine. Which subject, I mean, is this part of? So multilingualism is included in Norwegian as L1, or is it included in foreign languages curriculum, or where is this topic?
It's included actually in all language subjects.
All language subjects.
Yes, so it's Norwegian, English, foreign languages, mother tongue education, but also in the core curriculum. So I think I showed you one slide that said that all students shall experience to be proficient in multiple language is the resource, and that's across all subjects in school actually. But this is from 2020, so it's quite new that it's
recent.
So,
yes. Yeah, because I mean, I do this benefits of or advantages, okay, of being multilingual with year one student teachers here at the Faculty of Education. So these are primary school teachers, and I can see that it's a kind of a new topic for them. So they are not aware of all the benefits that there are. Yeah. Okay. So
I don't think they are very used to talking about it in school. No.
Yeah. You're right. And when it comes, let's say, in our situation, you know, where Slovenian is a language of 2 million people and hasn't been really used in schools that long, you know, so because let's say we got the first university in Slovenian language in 1917 or 18. So, you know, so there is another threat of other languages, you know, to Slovenian, which is also, you know, something that you need to talk about. But there, you know, other languages can really threaten, yeah. Okay, thank you. Andrea has a question, so please go ahead.
I don't have a question, I have a comment actually.
Yeah, okay.
Even though Norway and Slovenia are so far away, but we have so many things in common. For example, the attitude towards multilingualism, what this is, it correlates, I think, what I know from your articles, Åsta. Sorry for my voice. It correlates really so highly with fluency and proficiency in telling that you're a multilingual in Slovenia. It definitely has to have this aspect of being very, very good in one language. Basically, it has to be more than 2 languages. And then another thing which is really very interesting is about experiences, that students need to have experiences with other speakers of languages. Mostly when we do some student projects, we are looking for native speakers of that language, but I have a very good experience in Norway. I was in September in Tromsø, and I visited a school, and German is my foreign language, and I was speaking to the students in German language. We both have the same second language. It wasn't the native language for none of us, and it was really a nice experience because students found out that the German language that they're learning is really useful. They can communicate in German with other people, not only with Germans, because mostly when we communicate with other people, we communicate in English. And this was really a nice experience for both of us. And then another comment I have is when we're talking about multilingual pedagogies, I figured it out in one of my studies that teachers don't really know what to do in the classroom. The exercises that they do are mostly translating from one language to another language, which is not really the best example of multilingual approach, or they use some exercises that are in textbooks, but there are not very many. So what we really need to do is to show in praxis how multilingualism work. If we want to progress in this area, we really need to teach teachers how to cope with the multilingualism in the classrooms, what are good types of activities, how to address heritage languages at school, to show them really that this is a good resource. If we're talking only about benefits of multilingualism and don't do this in the practice, we do have results like you have in the study now, because students need to, they need a proof that this really works.
Thank you. There's a lot of interesting and good comments. First of all, I think also we have a lot in common, also because we are two small countries. Kind of, we have 5 million and you have some fewer, but still, and we have also quite new languages as our national languages. And we have to also know other languages because we cannot travel around with Slovenian and Norwegian and think that everyone will understand us. So yes, I think there is a lot in common. And the other thing you said, I absolutely agree with you that to actually experience that, to speak German with others who also learn German can be just as valuable and perhaps even more valuable, that you can communicate with others using that language all across the world, because people are learning German all across the world, or whatever other language we're talking about. And also about the teaching resources, I fully agree with you. We cannot, as researchers or teacher educators, just say that you should do this. There has to be concrete examples. But I also think it's important to involve the teachers in developing them, not just saying this is what you can do, but kind of working together with them and also looking at teachers who do this well and take it from there and say, look at this teacher here and what she does, and can we use this and can we share it with others, and kind of because there are some very good teachers around who really do this and that we can learn from a lot as well. So kind of this collaborative approach, I think, is a way to go to spread this around, because also some can be skeptical when people from university say that do this, but we have to do it together, I think. But thank you very much for your comments.
Yes, my another I don't know, suggestion or I don't know, can also be understood as a question is, I mean, now after COVID-19 2-year lockdown, we may have learned that I mean, online collaboration is another way of collaboration, isn't it? So maybe we could use this resource much more, also for I mean, for this reason, that you can, as was Andrea said, right, that you can communicate with other people in, let's say, German, and most probably you can communicate with somebody, through, I mean, Slovenian, and their mother tongue is something else. So, so I think that, because, I mean, if you only count on traveling and actually getting people, either to your country or you travel out, so abroad, this means lots of money, and it also means lots of pollution. But online collaboration can, I mean, online live collaboration may bring maybe some good resources for all of us. Have you maybe, I don't know, have you thought about this?
Yeah, we're just a good example of that here now, because I can just sit in my office and we are together. And of course, I think very many teachers also have realized, so they were in panic in the beginning of the pandemic, like, wow, now everything has to be online. But now many of them say that this has transformed their teaching, because they see now how many possibilities there are online to connect with people and to get people into the classroom and to get students out of the classroom, but still being at home. And so I think it has opened many people's eyes of what can be done.
Yeah, I think, and also, I mean, if I am a little bit self-critical, our students, when they either have to do seminar papers or when they, I don't know, do research for, their master or bachelor thesis, I mean, we could, I mean, as researchers and university teachers could collaborate more. So there is lots of room, as you mentioned, you said there's lots of room for improvement.
Yes, absolutely.
So.
And yeah, like we have now just submitted an Erasmus project proposal where we try to, the idea is that to collaborate, visiting each other's language classrooms, but online. Mm-hmm. So kind of my students would go and see how teaching goes on in probably this is a secret which countries this is.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, so kind of visiting each other and have a look at how teaching is done in, let's say, German in the different countries, and what we can learn from each other, and that the students meet then and talk about teaching across these borders.
It's a very good idea. Yeah. I hope you will get the Erasmus project, and hopefully we will be able to maybe work together, collaborate. Yeah.
Yes, that would be great.
Lots of similarities. Yeah. So anybody else from the audience, or you can write in the chat. I can translate. Please, just wait for a bit. Anybody? I can't see any hands. Anybody interested to ask a question or just comment on what we have been discussing here? And more listeners. Yeah, I don't want to push anybody. Well, thank you very much for all the very, very useful suggestions for improvement, and lots of results that well, actually you have done or you have come to through, I would say, what is this, cutting edge research. So thank you for sharing this with us. And I really do hope that we can collaborate together. So the University of Ljubljana is quite big, has many language departments, and hopefully, we can do some work together.
I don't know if we have any Erasmus collaboration with Slovenia, but that would be.
I don't know. I mean, but I have been collaborating with Angela Hasselgreen for quite some time. Yeah, I was involved in the ILIT project in ECML and so on. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And Ellie Moe, we co-wrote an article together. So, I know a few people from University of Bergnu, but more from the assessment.
Yeah, but that's good to know. So Ellie is here. It's here, just one floor down.
Okay, so give her my love.
Yeah, I will do that.
Regards, from Slovenia. Okay, so thank you very much. So teachers, if you are interested in collaboration, do come up, do say we would like to collaborate, and there are many possibilities now on either to set up a Erasmus Plus project, or I think they can also use scholarships, right, and travel to your country, or Norwegian teachers absolutely warmly invited to Slovenia. So I really do hope that we can collaborate more. And thank you for your presentation. And many more teachers will now be able to listen to your presentation and the results.
Yes. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you very much for being available for us.
Thank you. Have a nice evening, all of you.
You too. Yes, bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.